Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the Convo, a weekly series hosted by Leadership Indianapolis, where we interview local leaders in the city and talk to them about what it is that's going on. So today, I am so happy to be talking with our Deputy Mayor, Dr. David Hampton. How are you, Dr. Hampton?
Fine, thank you. How are you today, Ebony?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Happy to be talking with you today.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. So there is a lot going on in our city right now, a lot. We're dealing with the pandemic. We've had some unfortunate incidents happen in the city over the past couple of weeks, and people are just going through it. You're in a very unique situation because not only are you a faith leader, you've been a pastor for a very long time. You also work as a city official and you have a background in activism. How are you experiencing all of this that we're going through right now?
Yeah, this is a tough time for all of us. And, you know, based on what you just described, I guess my background is the perfect storm
Yeah.
of experience for this. Certainly not what anyone would want in their professional career. But, we're all trying to make it through day by day, a lot of prayer and what I see is a lot of, even in the midst of the division we see in our nation and world, I see a lot of hardworking individuals working together, a lot of cooperation, a lot of help. And it's a great thing to see.
Yeah, yeah. So in addition to that, what how do you bridge the gap between all these worlds? Because for some people, it would seem like you would need to separate and segment yourself in so many different ways. But how do you personally bridge the gap between all the different identities that you have?
Well, I think for me, the key is using the gifts that God has given me in more of a singular form rather than seeing myself as fragmented. My faith certainly informs a lot of how I operate, a lot of decisions and how I proceed forward. And I never leave my faith at the door, so to speak, when I'm operating, whether it's in city government, whether it's outside of the walls of the church or what have you. And I always operated from the philosophy, even when I was a pastor. There's a philosophy called the priestly role and the prophetic role. The priestly role is, as a pastor or as a prophet or one who preaches and one who leads, we, follow the gospel and God's plan for the congregation and for the church. But in the prophetic role, we don't separate that priestly role, but it includes a fight for justice, speaking out against inequities. This is something that prophets have done, throughout the centuries. And so that's how I view myself. I never separate who I am from what I do. And so for me, I'm able to kind of navigate fairly comfortably. I'm sure from the outside looking in, people feel, well, how does somebody do all of that? Doesn't it seem like a conflict of interest? Jesus operated in many spheres. He didn't remain in one place. He was in the temple, but he did most of his work outside, healing people and all manner of things. And so I view myself as somebody who wants to improve the community and really improve the conditions wherever I may be, wherever that is.
Yeah, yeah. And in improving, the conditions and, what's going on presently, what are some initiatives or things that the city is working on that we should know about in relation to this discussion?
So, I think the most recent initiative, and for those who may not know, the mayor made an announcement yesterday at the press conference that we are going to move forward with police body cams. By the summer, there will be a gradual rollout. But this is a discussion that's not new, and we've had the discussion even dating back to the Aaron Bailey case. And we made great strides. And I won't go into detail about, why that was held up for whatever reasons. We're here now, And I'm glad that progress has been made, even in the midst of what is a very tragic situation. Tragic for the city, tragic for that young man's family, tragic for our police department. It's a way for us to rally around the issues that are necessary, and body cams have been a discussion. And, as the Indy Star mentioned, Indianapolis is the largest city without body cams. And so we're going to make that change and turn that corner very quickly.
Yeah. I know that you have been a friend and a supporter of Leadership Indianapolis, most specifically with the Mayor's Youth Leadership Council. And I personally, as a young person that's grown up, was born and raised in this city, it's programs and initiatives like that one that have helped me and a lot of my friends and really given us the tools that we need. So tell us a little bit more about your work with that.
Yeah, and by the way, welcome aboard and congratulations in your new role with Leadership Indianapolis. I'm very excited because when I started with the administration in 2016, the Mayor's Youth Council was one of the first initiatives that I brought to the mayor. The mayor, he liked the idea. He said, hey, run with it. But it took 2 years to implement. We had to make sure we had the right infrastructure in place. At the time, we were transitioning leadership there at Leadership Indianapolis. And so when John Schertzer came on board, we were able to push forward the agenda for the Mayor's Youth Council. And it's been going great ever since. Those young people are some of the most talented and best representatives of the best that Indianapolis has to offer, among young people. They're so bright, so smart, so conscientious. And in the words of the young people, they're very woke, and the mayor and I speak to them. I think this coming Saturday is the last session that they'll have before graduation. But we take it very seriously, and these are the leaders of tomorrow. And so we really look to them for a youth perspective on many of the issues that we face today, whether it's gun violence. I'm sure we'll talk about the recent incidences, on this coming Saturday, whether it's hunger, food insecurity, poverty. They've covered it all. And we're just very glad to see that Mayor's Youth Leadership Council.
That is wonderful. And I'm so happy to hear that. I know that I mentioned earlier that you have done work as an activist before you came back to Indianapolis when you were in New York City, shutting down bridges with thousands of people, and then coming to Indianapolis. And when we went through the incident with Trayvon Martin, doing a lot of the same and just being engaged in this work, and lots of other things that you've done as well. Along the way, what are some of the top leadership lessons that you have gleaned from your experience that people listening can use in their work today?
Yeah, I in thinking about that, you're right. I've been a part of shutting down the Brooklyn Bridge here in Indianapolis. We shut down Michigan Road during the Trayvon Martin incident. And what I want people to know, at least pertaining to those, types of activist models or strategies, everybody has a constitutional right, to protest. One, the key is have a goal in mind. And then two, I don't want anybody to think that in anything that I did, was it not planned and highly organized. There were multiple meetings and strategies before we did any of that. And and I'm not, saying that anybody shouldn't operate the way they feel necessary based on their convictions, but don't underestimate the power of planning and careful organization. One, for the safety of yourself and everybody who's going to participate. I don't want anybody to think that, somebody made the comment that, well, do you think it's proper to sit down at the table with the very people against whom you're protesting? Well, everybody has to have a certain level of diplomacy. If you're going to move the needle forward, you have to sit down with the individuals that you want to make a change with. And that's what I think is effective in activism. But for me personally, I saw the value in both the ground level activism, and then for those who aspire to it, if you aspire to work within the system, within government, or if you decide to run for an office, which is what many individuals do, you find that you can actually affect policy changes at those levels. And so at some point, you know, we all have to make a decision for ourselves. What for you and your convictions signals the highest levels of change? And for me, the highest levels of change is when we can change policies that, you know, are effective for our people and for the things we've been fighting for as African Americans, black and brown people.
Yeah, that is wonderful. That is wonderful. For people that are hearing this conversation and they want to try to become engaged in some way, but aren't really sure where to start, maybe that is not the direct path for them. What advice would you give them on how to hone what type of leadership that they have within themselves to affect change?
Yeah, I'd say, you know, there are so many levels to how you can be involved. You certainly don't have to jump in, you know, 100% into the throes of something that you're not comfortable with. But, you know, start in your own home, educating yourselves, you know the issues, make sure that you're fully aware of even your own convictions, because sometimes, you know, so many things happen. Sometimes we have to gather ourselves and gather our thoughts about how do I even feel about this, you know? And so I would say start with education. Number two, you know, educate yourself also on what organizations exist, and then find something that follows your passion and get involved at whatever level you feel comfortable with. And then you can grow from there.
Yeah. Well, I think that is a great way to wrap it up. I certainly appreciate your wisdom and your thoughts in this conversation.
Thank you.
We are going through a really interesting time, not only just recent events, but this is against the backdrop of a pandemic. So there's
a global pandemic.
A global pandemic, yes. So there is so much that we have to think about, but it's going to take people stepping up in order and being collaborative in order for us to get to where we want to be. So I appreciate you being one of those people.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Thank you all for tuning in for the Convo, and have a great afternoon.